Recently, I read a book called The Secret History of Mongol Queens. The book talks about the women of the Mongol Empire and how they played strategic parts in the expansion, maintenance, and continuance of the empire. Before reading this book, I didn't know anything about the women of this time. When you hear Mongol, you think of brutish leaders like Genghis or Kublai Khan. But for this video, I'm only going to mention those names in relation to our main characters Kutalun, Mandukai, and Alakai Beki. Alakai Beki. Alakai Beki, daughter of Genghis Khan, is maybe one of the most important chess pieces in the expansion of the Mongol Empire. Alakai Beki is one of the few known daughters of Genghis Khan. At around 16, she was married to a member of the Ongud, a southern clan, in an alliance arranged by her father. In Mongol culture, despite the many claims of brute force, power was gained through marriage alliances, a strategy heavily utilized by Genghis. Genghis made sure Alakai Beki knew her role was not to simply be a wife, but to be an extension of the Khan himself. He made sure no one could threaten her place in Ongud society, forcing her husband to dismiss all his other wives. She was to be the only one. When Genghis ventured off to claim another clan, he assumed the Ongud would support him in his efforts. But Genghis was not popular with the Ongud people. The Ongud had already overthrown and killed their own leader, and planned to do the same with Alakai Beki. She escaped and fled to her father's camp. When she told him of the rebellion, he vowed to burn the Ongud kingdom and everyone in it to the ground.
You should take their precious hope and the rest of their land and burn it all to the ground.
But Alakai Beki convinced him not to. She saw herself as a part of the Ongud now, and would not allow her father to decimate her people. She instead suggested that he only extinguish those involved directly with the rebellion, plus their families, which, okay, maybe a little much, but that's pretty tame for Genghis Khan. Alakai Beki ruled the Ongud for many years, making them one of the only rebellious clans to survive the Mongol Empire. She became literate, studied medicine, and even hired women as political aides. She established a government that was tolerant and welcoming to many different people, so long as they did not oppose the Khan, setting the example for her brothers who would go on to lead the empire. Mandukai. When she was 16, she was married off to Mandul Khan, who ruled in northern Yuan. Though not Mandul's first wife, Mandukai quickly came to the forefront of the family. When her husband died without an heir, Mandukai sought out a young boy named Badmunk. We're going to call him Batu for short. Batu was one of the last remaining legitimate, direct descendants of Genghis Khan, and therefore in line for the title of Great Khan. Mandukai adopted Batu, declared him ruling Khan, and because of his age, became his regent, and thus began her plan to reunite the fractured Mongol Empire. Mandukai waged war with rival clans, namely the Oirats. Her victory over the Oirats led to the reunification of Mongolia for the first time in over 100 years. When Batu turned 19, Mandukai married him to maintain her power over the empire. I know what you're thinking, and yes, technically she married her son, but he was adopted, and this was the 15th century. I'm not saying it's okay, I'm just saying it wasn't all that odd for the time. By the way, Mandukai, in addition to essentially ruling an entire empire and delivering it from the brink of collapse, also delivered 8 children, which included not one, not two, but 3 sets of twins. And prior to giving birth to one of these sets of twins, she led her troops to not only squash an Oirat uprising, but also several attacks from Ming Dynasty armies while pregnant. In fact, the Ming were so worried by Mandukai that they even ramped up construction of the Great Wall just to keep her out. Mandukai died sometime around 1510. The most credible sources say she died of natural causes, although there are some legends that allege a Ming assassin or a disgruntled concubine may have had a hand in her death. Her grave has never been found, but her story lives on. Kutalun. And then we have Kutalun, the actual definition of a warrior princess. Kutalun was the great great granddaughter of Genghis Khan and niece to Kublai Khan. Having grown up with a whopping 14 brothers, Kutalun had more than her fair share of tussles and quickly became known for her wrestling skills. Because she was a woman, it was always in the cards that she would enter a strategic marriage alliance for the sake of the empire. But Kutalun made a bargain with her father, Kaidu. She would only marry the man who could defeat her in wrestling, and any man she would beat would then owe her 100 horses. She was so well known for her warrior abilities that even Marco Polo wrote about her. Long story short, Kutalun had amassed 10,000 horses and no husband. This aversion to marriage, however, led to some, shall we say, unscrupulous rumors. Y'all can look it up, I don't want to get flagged here. Being spread amongst the clans about Kutalun and her family. In order to protect her family's reputation, Kutalun eventually took a husband. Upon his deathbed, Kaidu tried to install his daughter as the next Khan ruler, but her brothers and rivals from the other clans challenged this political move. Kutalun died at age 46, and with her death, the Mongol Empire's nomadic factions began to fall apart. Kutalun is thought to be one of the empire's last great warrior princesses. The Mongol Empire was known for the men who united the various clans and civilizations they encountered. But the women of the empire were equally important, and without them, the empire could have never become as successful as it was. I hope you enjoyed this little history lesson. I like to make videos about things like this, so if you want to see more of this content or have a suggestion on what I can research next, leave a comment down below. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope it's a good day for you, and I'll see you next time. Bye!